It was supposed to be a castle, a monument to a new beginning, $1 million beacon of love that had triumphed over a broken plural marriage. But on a windblown hill in Flagstaff, Arizona, the foundations of that castle started to crack. And although the process was recognized, the result was one Kody and Robyn resolutely opposed. This was not fair. It was a trial tainted by the court of public opinion, fueled by a relentless media frenzy. Judgment was passed, the world had passed sentence. In Aberdeen Holdings' civil case against Wives Brown, Kody and Robyn Brown were held responsible for misrepresentation and breach of fiduciary duty. The verdict: a whopping amount that fractured their family to its very foundation. For most, this was the culmination of the saga, the ultimate karmic bookend to the Browns' collapse. But Kody and Robyn didn't want to give up yet. They geared up for one last fight. This is the story of that fight, a desperate appeal resting on fragile legal ground. A tale of overwhelming debt, concealed assets, and a family dragged to the brink of collapse. What you're about to hear is a detailed investigation pieced together from court documents, financial records, and exclusive insider reports that you'll only find here. Welcome back to Reality Recap. If you are willing to go deeper than the headlines and find out what the TLC will never show, then you are in the right place. We're pulling back the veil on the Browns' darkest moment. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because the bombshells we found are explosive, and you won't want to miss a minute. Let's get started. Robyn once explained, "This is something that comes from our hearts, and we want to share it with the world." But to appreciate the attraction, you first need to know the devastating loss that preceded it. This wasn't a suit brought by an aggrieved ex-wife or unhappy relative. It was brought by a group of early investors in my sister wife's closet, the family's widely touted, but ultimately failed jewelry and lifestyle company, financed by Aberdeen Holdings. The charge was straightforward but deadly. Kody and Robyn, as sole directors, had systematically defrauded their investors. The rosy financial forecasts and slick business plans, in the words of the court, were a fabrication, according to the plaintiffs, the nub of the case. The millions invested were not put toward inventory advertising or business expansion. They were purportedly diverted to finance the Browns' increasingly upscale lifestyle that involved substantial down payments on their Flagstaff houses, and, in the end, the building of Robyn's sprawling mansion. As explained by attorney Eliza Vance, this was not a failed business venture. The jury was shown overwhelming evidence, emails, texts, and bank statements that told a damning tale. The prosecution contended, and the jury accepted, that Kody and Robyn had used the corporate bank account as their personal piggy bank, Mexican vacations, payments on luxury cars, designer clothing, all hidden under such dubious expenses as product research or marketing. The jury did not interpret this as mere mismanagement, but as a calculated plan of deception. The verdict was unanimous. The Browns were required to repay the $2.5 million investment, plus $3 million in punitive damages and legal expenses, an astonishing $5.5 million total. To a family already reliant on a declining reality show for income, this was a financial knockout, Kody mourned. "We are struggling. We are drowning financially." Those words, which had sounded like on-screen drama previously, now sounded like a direful prophecy. The Browns had just two choices: go bankrupt and lose everything, or resist. They decided to resist. The appeal was a legal Hail Mary, though. Their lawyer, Meri Finch, stated, "We will be filing an immediate notice of appeal, and our arguments are twofold. First, that my clients could not receive a fair trial in this jurisdiction, and second, that key evidence admitted against them was protected and should never have been permitted in court." It was daring, but most of those who analyzed the law wrote it off as nothing more than a last-ditch gamble. Let's dissect their two-pronged attack. The first argument: jury bias. Kody and Robyn's defense, led by Finch, a flamboyant and famously pricey lawyer, asserted that the jury was poisoned by what they referred to as a media circus. As Eliza Vance wrote, "This is one of the hardest arguments to win." Their argument was straightforward. Given Sister Wives is such a well-known show, and the Browns were so negatively portrayed in the media and on the internet, no juror could have ever remained unbiased. They'll reference articles, Reddit posts, TikToks, and even YouTube channels such as this one. Their argument: that the judge did not properly vet jurors for inherent bias against Kody and Robyn, Finch's lawyers submitted a 300-page brief filled with screenshots and metrics, asserting that public sentiment was so decidedly against their clients that prejudice should have been assumed. Their complaint was that the jurors weren't deciding Kody and Robyn the business people, they were deciding Kody and Robyn the reality television antagonists. As Eliza Vance put it, the standard for demonstrating that is incredibly high. You essentially have to demonstrate that media coverage was so inflammatory and so pervasive that it contaminated the entire jury pool. Judges very infrequently reverse decisions on this ground, because it is in effect an admission that they themselves failed at jury selection. It is a slap in the face to the court's own authority. Whereas the reputation of Finch rests on hardball, aggressive tactics, most legal analysts feel that this aspect of the appeal is dead on arrival. But it is the second point of their appeal that isn't just bolder, but potentially chilling to the whole reality television genre. The second pillar of their strategy rests on a novel theory we're calling the reality television shield. Finch is arguing that because Kody and Robyn are contracted television personalities, their on-air statements where they talked about money struggles, business woes, and spending habits should be considered performances, not facts. Robyn once said on the show, "It's just so hard. We have all these house payments, and we're just trying to keep our heads above water." Finch expanded on this by saying, "My clients are entertainers. They are paid to tell a compelling story on camera." The prosecution took footage edited for dramatic effect and treated it like sworn deposition testimony. Context is everything. Their contract with the network effectively makes them actors portraying versions of themselves. You can't hold an actor liable in civil court for something that is written into or promoted by a production company. If upheld, this line of argument would rock the reality television world to its foundations. Eliza Vance sat forward interested and confessed, "This is where it gets interesting. Finch is attempting to establish a completely new precedent, basically that their TLC contract creates a fictional bubble for them." In this framing, when Kody says on camera, "We're drowning in debt," it's not a factual admission, it's a storyline beat. When Robyn laments needing more money for her massive house, it's not evidence of financial recklessness, it's character motivation. Finch is essentially attempting to exclude all on-air evidence, likening it to using a quote from Game of Thrones in a real-world lawsuit against the actors. Of course, the plaintiff's lawyers responded by calling the argument absurd and insulting to the intelligence of the court. Their retort: "The show has long been marketed to the public as a reality documentary, and the Browns have gained years of lucrative advantage from people thinking what they were seeing was real. To now say it was all staged," they contended, was the most cynical and egotistical spin. And so the appeal is predicated on a basic, disturbing question: where does the real world end and the performance begin? And can you indeed blur the lines to avoid responsibility in the real world? Meanwhile, while high-flying legal abstracts are argued in the Court of Appeals, Kody and Robyn are fighting an even more vicious fight at home, a struggle against bankruptcy. Beneath the gilded facade presented by their lawyer is a family in complete financial ruin. Public records relate the true tale. Marcus Thorne pointed out the most obvious red flag, the lien. Court documents filed only 3 days after the verdict showed that in order to secure Donovan Finch's service for the appeal, Kody and Robyn had to put a huge lien on their family home. As Thorne described, a lien of this size is disastrous. It is not a second mortgage. A lien is a claim on property to secure the repayment of a debt. Here, Finch and Sterling now have a $1.2 million claim on the Browns' house. That is to say that Kody and Robyn can't sell or refinance their property without first paying the firm. It essentially ties up their most valuable asset. It is the financial version of tying your house into a straitjacket. And as per people briefed on the situation, that $1.2 million isn't merely for the appeal, it also seems to include gigantic unpaid legal fees carried over from the original trial. In short, Kody and Robyn were already operating on fumes financially way before the jury delivered its condemning verdict. Thorne finished with the obvious question, and you have to ask yourself, why would a family that has what is meant to be a television career worth multi-millions do this? Why couldn't they just pay their lawyers in cash? The reason, when you look at the filings and all the known sources of income, is chillingly simple: the cash has vanished. For years, the Browns had been navigating through a complicated and impenetrable financial maze. Several LLCs with money bouncing between business and personal accounts. So convoluted that even their own on-screen accountant confessed it was difficult to keep up with. Our financial expert, Marcus Thorne, spent the past month parsing their financial trail. As he put it, what we're seeing is classic lifestyle inflation spiraling far beyond income. Even generously estimating their TLC salaries at the peak, perhaps $50,000 per adult per episode, or close to $800,000 per season. It sounds like plenty, but then divide it among 4 households. Add the enormous costs of relocating to Flagstaff. Add in mortgages or lease payments on 4 large houses, and the tax liability on raw Coyote Pass land. The arithmetic, Thorne insists, never worked. They were likely subsidizing their operations for years with social media revenue, and, as charged in court, my sister wife's closet investor funding, exits by Christine, Janelle, and Meri, weren't merely emotional wounds, they were fiscal tremors. Thorne went on to say, when Christine and Janelle up and left, they took their shares of the TLC paycheck with them. That probably cut Kody and Robyn's income in half overnight, but their bills didn't decrease the house, the property, the vehicles all stayed. That lien on the house isn't an ominous warning sign. It is a bright, flashing neon sign that bankruptcy looms in the background. They're not just broke, they're millions over. So the appeal is more than a legal tactic. It is a desperate hope to hold off financial meltdown already in progress. Court documents tell one story. What happens behind the walls of that massive Flagstaff compound, though? To find out, we spoke with our network of insiders, individuals who've worked with the Browns, lived in the vicinity, or experienced the blowback personally. To protect them, we've kept their names anonymous. What they reported was a couple disintegrating in paranoia and panic. Own insider, a one-time production assistant who worked on the show during the time of the verdict, spoke of the set as unbearable. It was a nightmare. Kody was not around. He wouldn't shoot, and when he did, he was angry. He blamed everybody the network for turning him into a villain, Christine and Janelle for leaving and making him seem weak. The investors for being vultures. He never once took an ounce of blame. It was always someone else's fault. The biggest explosive arguments weren't filmed. They blew up off-set between Kody and Robyn, says this insider. Robyn was coming apart, but not how you see it on television. This was more than tears, this was desperation, anger, fear. You could hear them yelling in the walls. She screamed at him for promising her financial security. He yelled back that her never-ending wants, her dream home, were sinking them. At one stage, sound equipment captured her crying, "They're going to take my house, Kody, you promised." If true, this report shatters the well-rehearsed image of a solid couple, and instead discloses a marriage disintegrating under constant financial stress. But the disturbing reports didn't stop at the interior of their house. A neighbor, whose land adjoins the Browns' property, had witnessed late night odd activity. They were so quiet before, the neighbor told me. Now cars are coming at all hours, black sedans, expensive SUVs, not friends or relatives. These are guys in suits. They linger for an hour and leave. No cameras, no production team. This isn't for TLC even more concerning. They told of a recent incident a few weeks ago. A plain, unmarked van pulled into the garage at midnight. People filled up boxes, not furniture, but little things, cartons. And then it was gone. So what is going on here then? A paranoid husband, a terrorized wife suit, wearing late, night visitors, a van carrying boxes under the cover of night. In isolation, these could be innocent coincidences. But in addition to the incriminating financial records, they point to something much more sinister. And here is where our soul theory comes into play. According to the testimony of these sources, our best guess is the man in the suit wasn't an attorney, and wasn't a pal. He was not a lawyer. Anyway, he was an asset appraiser. And those boxes going out of the house, they were not garbage. They held valuable, movable assets. We think that while Donovan Finch battles the appeal in the limelight, Kody and Robyn are waging a silent war in the background and desperate race to sell off or hide whatever treasures they can before creditors descend. Designer bags, jewelry, artwork, collectibles, anything not bolted to the floor. This is not about battling a court case. It is about protecting what little there is from the economic guillotine poised to drop on them. The lien on their house was just the start, the public offering the private concealment for their desperation. the house can be tied up as collateral, but what about the treasures within it? And that is where our investigation picks up. In part 2 of this series, we lift the veil on their finances, following trail of hidden LLCs, suspicious transfers, and years of shady money trails. We'll also show you what insiders from within the Brown family loop really have to say about this crisis, and the drastic last-ditch effort Kody and Robyn are rumored to be cooking up. An effort so extreme it could turn everything on its head. But first, let's go back to the appeal itself. Our theory has been that the appeal is less about reversing the verdict and more about stalling a cover for a desperate game of asset protection. Now, after reading Donovan Finch's complete appeal brief, legal analyst Eliza Vance agreed just how brazen their legal stunt really is. She went on, "This so-called reality television shield is not merely contending that Kody and Robyn's words were part of a performance. Finch is trying to formally reclassify them, and by extension all reality television performers as fictionalized persona performers. It is a completely new legal term he has basically coined. The opinion even draws on strange precedents, satirical news programs, and professional wrestling." In a breathtaking footnote, Finch literally equates Kody Brown's on-air tirades against money with Hulk Hogan's 1980s wrestling promos, his argument. Just as you can't sue Hulk Hogan for vowing to squash an opponent in the ring, you can't hold Kody Brown's on-camera statements about bankruptcy as sworn financial admissions. But Aberdeen Holdings lawyers were quick on the uptake, labeling the argument a cynical exercise in reality television revisionism. They called in experts in the field to make the point. Dr. Atherton stated bluntly, "The whole appeal of a show like Sister Wives is its apparent authenticity. The network and the family have made millions off the implicit promise that what you're watching is real life. The very name of the show frames it as documentary. To now claim it was all performance isn't just legally weak, it's a betrayal of their audience. It amounts to admitting that the product they sold for 12 years was, by their own definition, a fraud." The attorneys for the plaintiffs relied heavily on this hypocrisy. They offered up dozens of interviews in which Kody and Robyn spent years assuring everybody who would listen that the reality show was real. Kody has said once to People magazine, "We wanted to do this show to share the reality of our lives, the good and the bad." Robyn, in an early interview, reiterated, "What you see is what you get. It is real, it is raw, and we don't hide anything." As Eliza Vance summed up, that is precisely why this reality television shield is going to implode. Their own public admissions totally undermine their legal argument. A judge will see this and say, "You can't cash in on being real for more than a decade, and then when it finally bites you back, hope it was just pretend." It is playing both sides, and judges don't play nicely with people who do that. And the stakes couldn't be higher. If Finch's gambit pays off, it would grant reality stars legal immunity. Anything they say or do on camera could be waved away as entertainment, not evidence. But if it fails, as most anticipate, the ruling could have the opposite effect, entrenching a precedent that reality television statements can and will be used as fact in the eyes of the law. Kody and Robyn's last-ditch attempt may do more than impact their case. It may blow the already fuzzy line between legal reality and reality television for all of us. This is where forensic finance starts to reveal the messy web they've spun, and right in the middle of it is Marcus Thorne's analysis. That lien on the property, that was just the tip of the iceberg. To find the true fire, you need to follow it all back to 2015, the year Dabsark Entertainment was created. On paper, it was a simple production company, a vehicle to pool the family's TLC earnings. But delve into the business records and property documents, and you find the reality. It was greater than a company, it was a shell. A building constructed to juggle money in a manner that appears careless at best and deliberately deceptive at worst. And the name does it all. Dabsark is not arbitrary. It is an acronym constructed out of the first names of Robyn's kids and Kody's Dayton: Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, Ariella, Robyn, and Kody. Missing from this list, the other 3 wives and their 13 children. From the very beginning, the whole legal and financial system was focused around Robyn and her side of the family. Here is the way the system operated. TLC's checks were deposited into Dabsark. Kody and Robyn only they had the signature authority drew out spousal salaries to Meri, Janelle, and Christine. But here is the catch. Property purchases weren't funded by money from the wives' accounts. They were done as loans from Dabsark itself, and Marcus Thorne explains why it matters. A loan is not free money. It is a liability. It meant that Janelle and Christine, after investing their sweat and their wages into the group, weren't really accumulating equity. Legally, they owed Kody and Robyn, and when Christine eventually sold her property, sources claim she had to sacrifice a significant portion of her profit as repayment for the Dabsark loan money which she had already assisted in earning in the first place. A cunning but clever gesture that left the power balance firmly with Kody and Robyn. But the most disturbing paper trail points directly into my sister wife's closet. This was the core of the litigation. Aberdeen Holdings put up $2.5 million, wiring money directly into the MSWC business account. And within weeks, the funds started to disappear. Massive transfers designated as management fees, or intercompany loans, started flowing into Dabsark, sometimes $250,000 at a blow. In the interior of Dabsark, the money became commingled with income from TLC, an ideal smokescreen. Prosecutors showed that those funds weren't being reinvested back into the company. Instead, they went toward paying personal bills, including, as trial evidence showed, a $75,000 down payment on the very property on which Robyn's house now sits. To the jury, it was a traditional shell game, and the verdict made it clear how convincing that evidence was. But our research has revealed something prosecutors barely touched on. The Browns' credit card empire, families with money, typically balance several lines of credit. But the figures here point to something much more sinister. Even by our outside estimate, based on their visible assets compared to what they've spent, Kody and Robyn are likely to be incurring almost $500,000 in high-interest credit card debt, spread over many accounts. And the trend is towards a credit card kite, paying off one card with another, digging further into an indebtedness pit. That $2.5 million investment didn't go entirely towards indulging in lifestyle luxuries. Signs are that it was being drained to avoid being overwhelmed by this mountain of consumer debt years ago, which puts everything else about their present desperation into perspective. The appeal is not merely about avoiding a $5.5 million judgment. Judgments of that magnitude trigger automatic clauses with most lenders. If the decision holds, credit card issuers and other lenders can reduce limits or call in balances instantly. That would create a financial implosion overnight and instant collapse of their house of cards. For Robyn and Kody, it is not only a matter of purchasing time in court, it is a matter of purchasing oxygen. Without it, they're going to lose everything. The house, the property, the vehicles, all the assets they've held on to. And it wouldn't be only Aberdeen Holdings they'd have to worry about. There could be as many as 6 other creditors lurking in the wings, ready to pounce once the shield is lifted. And yet, through the center of this maelstrom, gravitating in silence, but necessarily pulled back in, are the 3 women who previously shared this existence with them. Christine, Janelle, and Meri, all forging new lives, yet still bound by the chain of Kody and Robyn's choices. We interviewed a family source who has been close to the Browns for more than 15 years, still in touch with multiple members. Their explanation of the reaction of the ex-wives? A combination of sadness, vindication, and suspicion. Christine, they tell her, has nothing to do with the mess. Not a shred. This debacle to her is just the last nasty result of the poisonous financial system she left behind. To her, it is not just a crisis. It is proof that she made the only correct decision. She is concerned for the little ones still caught up in this mess, but as far as Kody and Robyn go, Christine has no compassion. In her opinion, they constructed this catastrophe brick by brick, and now they have to live in it. Her focus has been clear as a bell since she split, firewall her money from theirs. Insiders say Christine's hasty sale of her Flagstaff house wasn't about moving on, it was calculated. She reportedly realized the family's impending financial disaster well in advance of everybody else. She was aware that the MSWC venture was a money pit and understood that Kody and Robyn were secretly siphoning family money to prop it up. A source claims that is why she made severing ties to all joint ventures and properties her top priority. She knew a day like this would arrive. Janelle's situation is much more complicated. Sources paint her as the pragmatist of the group. She doesn't get emotional, she does math. During the discovery phase of the trial, she was subpoenaed. She complied, but with the utmost of caution, telling everything truthfully, but never volunteering a single extra word above and beyond what was queried. She is privy to the entire money background, but she will not give the plaintiffs the blueprint to dead bodies. Her allegiance is only for her children, especially Savannah, and insulating them from the fallout. Then the bombshell, our source reported on a secret gathering that, allegedly, occurred a month prior to the verdict. One of the plaintiff's lawyers, Aberdeen Holdings, contacted both Christine's and Janelle's lawyers discreetly. The deal? The full cooperation and testimony for a share of punitive damages and complete immunity from any future clawbacks. In other words, an opportunity to get back money they had lost to the Brown family's financial sinkhole. Christine replied at once, a firm no. She needed a clean break. Janelle, however, waffled. For a week or so, she seriously thought about it. The possibility of recovering even a small percentage of what she'd invested in Coyote Pass was alluring, but she did not come back. She didn't want to appear as though she was benefiting from the destruction of her family. Nevertheless, the fact that she even considered the offer reflects how profound the wounds actually are. And what is more, our inside source tells us that the plaintiffs also came perilously close to securing a star witness from within the family itself. And then there is Meri. She is the mystery. Legally cut loose, financially independent, but still emotionally attached. Sources say she is a black box. Betrayed by the MSWC scandal, which she played a role in creating initially but not wanting to testify against them. She can stand back and watch the house burn, but she won't pour on gas. She is just glad she escaped with her own lifeboat. The image is stark. 3 women who severed connections just in time. Now safely on the shore, witnessing the captain and his queen sink with the ship. There will be no rescue. Kody and Robyn are left to fend for themselves. Which leads us to the end game. Marcus Thorne explains that the appeal is virtually sure to lose. When it does, the $55 million judgment becomes instantly enforceable. Their assets will be taken. The home will be forced into sale. Their accounts garnished. From a financial perspective, it is checkmate. There is no standard escape route. That is why rumors of bankruptcy have been floating around for months. Filing Chapter 7 would erase much of the debt and allow them to retain the bare necessities, although it would destroy their credit and taint their public image. But there is one hitch, Kody Brown. Bankruptcy is admitting defeat. It is shame. And insiders say his ego simply won't permit it. Worse still, bankruptcy would install a trustee with sweeping authority, the power to claw back prior transfers, audit their expenses, and even bring the other wives in for questioning. It would be a fiscal colonoscopy, and the Browns are afraid of that kind of intrusion. So if not bankruptcy, then what? As our sources tell us, the ultimate gambit is already in the works. The appeal, the asset freezes, the measured silence, they all point to one stunning possibility. A scheme so bold, it can only be the handiwork of Kody Brown. And that is where our probe takes its deadliest, most incendiary turn so far. It may all be about one goal, purchasing mere time enough to channel what little remaining liquid wealth they possess out of reach of us courts. Marcus Thorne spoke gravely, leaning forward. Sounds like a Hollywood script, he said, but for individuals facing a huge judgment that they'll never be able to pay, it is a keenly real last resort. Here is how that would go down. Step 1. Sell everything of value for cash. That includes jewelry, collectibles, and other valuables, precisely what the neighbors report to have seen departing the residence in boxes. Step 2. Open an account secretly in a jurisdiction with rock-solid financial secrecy. Consider Belize, the Cook Islands, or Panama. Step 3. Transfer the funds offshore. As soon as that money leaves countries, getting it back is nearly impossible. Creditors would have to initiate an expensive overseas legal pursuit, something the plaintiffs may determine isn't worth it. This perspective puts everything in a different light. The Mr. in a suit, maybe not an appraiser, but an offshore asset protection expert. Donovan Finch's constant stalling maneuvers, maybe not merely legal maneuvers, but an intentional stall until the transfer is finished. If Kody and Robyn were able to stash even $1 million offshore, their plan is drastically different. They can then file for bankruptcy in the U.S. with nearly no assets reflected on paper. The court will take the house and the Coyote Pass property, but since those are already swimming in liens and mortgages, the creditors will gain next to nothing. Then the Browns might, in theory, disappear overseas and subsist on secret money, brazenly thumbing their noses at the American legal system. It is a risk hovering on the cusp of outright criminal fraud. If it is discovered, it is fraudulently conveying title or jail. But in a way, it is also quintessentially in line with Kody Brown's defiant psyche, an outlaw monarch who will not admit defeat, still believing he can outsmart the system that, in his own mind, fooled him. A last-gasp bid for control over a life-long fractured wild speculation? Absolutely, but in the saga of Kody Brown, it is usually the wildest theories that come closest to the truth. And so we sit here, atop a gusty hill in Flagstaff, gazing at a narrative that defies a neat conclusion. A legal appeal bound to fall apart. A financial debacle so total it can only lead to bankruptcy. Or an overseas flight into exile. A family name once heralded to the masses, now the stuff of whispers about lawsuits, liens, and rumor. Swept hidden accounts abroad. The empire Kody always wanted has already crumbled. 3 wives lost, the territory lost. The treasury drained. All that is left is one faithful queen, a fortress, like palace that is more prison than palace, and an inescapable mountain of debt that will haunt them forever. The real question now is no longer about verdicts or appeals. It is about the price tag, the cost in human lives. Will this desperate plan bring salvation, or will it be the ultimate spark that reduces them to ashes, pulling Kody and Robyn further into destruction until all that is left is rubble?